Hi everybody. Let's do a panel about open innovation, corporate venturing, and the way startups work together with corporates, vice versa, and how we can improve it. In Inken, what did you learn during the last couple of years working with startups? What is really important to be when you are a big company like Innogy, when you work together with startups?
I think the first lessons learned was not from our own, but it was from outside, because when we started the Innovation Hub, we wanted to learn what is not working and what are the failures if you want to work with startups. And we learned it from other industries, other corporates, and also from startups by just purely asking. And that's why we placed the Innogy Innovation Hub outside the corporate, to be fast, agile. So we have different kind of processes, different kind of approaches, rather also being able to act as a startup and following same, so to say, process and pace. And this helps a lot. And of course, then the trick comes if you have to approach the mothership. And there, the second lesson learned is make sure up front that you can facilitate then this connection fast. Otherwise, that's still sometimes getting too long for the startup. So we always try to keep our promise that we are able within days and just we talk about some weeks to really to make the connect, because we know startups can't wait.
And do you get a lot of demand from startups? Are you kind of acknowledged to be an easy to deal with corporate at the moment?
Overall, yes, but of course, we also had some learnings and failures. I think we did pretty good at the beginning when we were very hands-on in what kind of cooperation contracts we do and so on and so forth. But now we're getting more and more traction. We're investing in companies, so things getting more and not so easy always. Still, we have the ambition to be fast. Yeah, we had recently some contracts where we dealt a bit longer with our lawyers and some stakeholders. Still, the startup is with us, and we really tried to make that happen. I think there we had not such a good speed, but you learn again from these cases for all the others to be better, and better.
And what do you think personally, how important are startups for the future of Innogy and the big goal that you are pursuing of becoming a smart green utility, as I like to call it?
Startups are very important in our whole ecosystem we are building. It's a big part of the partnerships and networks we are setting up. As I said in my speech earlier, there's a lot of technology, software, creativity out there, and we want to be fast and we want to move fast to get to that new innovative energy system, and that's why startups are an important part of our whole story.
And in the break, I heard a comment from somebody. They were quite impressed that at Innogy you are actually a very large team in the Innovation Hub.
Yeah,
it's quite unusual to have so many people being open for startups, right? It's not only one person.
No, we started with two. Mid-end of 2014, we were 2 people literally, and today we are 130 people. But as I explained earlier, today in 4 different outposts, so Silicon Valley, Israel, London, Berlin, and 5 lighthouses. We have a bunch of venture developers. We are working on around about 20 to 30 startups in parallel in the different stages. Yes, I think quite a lot of people, but a lot of doing really good, cool stuff.
Leonie, how much did you change during the last couple of years the way you work together with the startups? What lessons did you actually apply internally to get better and be more welcoming and be faster?
A lot. Yeah, I think we, before we started Innovation and Ventures, we did work together with a couple of startups, but more or less accidentally. We just encountered them in the market and we liked what they did, and then we invested in them. And then because we didn't basically have another way to go about it, we just positioned them under the relevant business unit. And that was mistake number 1. So what we learned is that it's working together with a startup requires a certain attitude, but also investing in a startup and behaving as a shareholder is something else than working together with them, and you should really split those two roles. So right now what we're really trying to do, as you mentioned as well, is kind of the balance between, on the one hand, you want to be available as a corporate to offer what you can offer that a just financial investor cannot, and on the other hand, you need to really behave as a shareholder and not as a corporate mother trying to steer this company. So what we try to do is we work really tight together from both the innovation teams and the venture teams, so to say, so the investors at the start. So we really look at what's the strategic rationale, how could we help this startup and how can they help us? And we try at the beginning of the deal really see if there can be a commercial deal at the moment of signing, so we can really deliver on that promise. Because one of the other things that we learned looking around in the industry is that it happens, I think, a little bit too often that the investment comes through, but then the promise of we can deliver something, being a customer or being a launching platform for your service, doesn't always come through. So we try to do that at the beginning, but then we really take on several roles. So as an investor, I'm not involved in the commercial negotiations, and the other way around. The business units or innovation teams cannot influence my decisions as an investor. So it's but it's a difficult balance, and you're bound to make mistakes and you're bound to learn.
How much can you actually standardize the process of working with startups, given the fact that each startup is different? Is it really possible, or do you have to be a really agile and flexible team in order to understand, first of all, what the startup is doing, and then finding out whom to connect the startup with in the big corporate?
We are able to standardize a little bit on the investment part, in the sense that we just say, okay, we like minority investments. We feel that we have to act as a financial investor in the terms that we don't have weird call options in there, or that we allow them an exit, and you can standardize that part. I don't think you can standardize the cooperation that you have, because it really depends whether a startup provides a key piece of technology that you like to use, or whether they are a distribution partner, or whether they just like to share knowledge, but maybe aren't as close in their operations to our own operations as some others. So we just really pick the team and the way, depending on the case at hand.
Knut, you are working a lot with EDF, a big utility from France, active in Germany too. You are also talking a lot to the other corporates sitting here on the panel and the ones not sitting here on the panel. What is your impression in actually dealing with them? It's a tricky question, because you want to be polite, but he's known for being very honest, so give him a chance.
I think it's very important not to underestimate how long the way is that you have to go after you have liaised somehow. Yeah, if you have achieved a commitment by a utility, and even if it's some millions, that will not control then the utility. So as a founder, of course, you are of the opinion that now someone has recognized you. Finally, now the world is going to change. Now, now you're on the agenda. Yeah, you are on someone's agenda somehow, somewhere, sometimes. But it's not, you're not wagging the dog, right? I mean, you are the small startup, and there's the huge corporate, and it's not going to change just because someone decides to invest. One shall not underestimate that truth. Yeah, so apart from that, that means that once they are on board, the selling goes on. I mean, convincing, building then internal relations, convincing still skeptical other critical paths within the organization, convincing the guy that hadn't been asked before he should have been asked, etc., 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 and that takes time. And then the work is just going on. And so I think by now we have a pretty realistic expectation. So things are developing nicely, as they should, I think. So we have been in less favorable situations, I would say. But that is what I think should be really, by founders, taken into account, that the investment is a step, maybe it's your most important up to this point, but it won't be the last, and it will not be the sufficient one for being successful. So then within the organization, you have to stay alive, position yourself just like one of another 17,000 projects that are ongoing in this large corporation.
I think that touches upon a really important point, that the investment is made and you're the tail, you're not the dog. But the thing is, the dog does go off on different directions. So strategies for corporate venturers change. The average life of a corporate venture fund, and this is the downside, is only 3 or 4 years. People talk about financial funds, they're only 10 years long, and this is clean tech, so we need longer than that. But actually the average life cycle of a corporate venture fund is only 3 to 4 years, because strategy changes. So the key thing here, as Leonie said, is to not get too close to the companies, to make sure that when you're investing, you are understanding the separation between the large corporate and the venture unit. The venture unit ought to be autonomous, especially in terms of the terms. You might invest as a strategic, but behave like a financial, especially when you're negotiating terms. And if you're, so I'm a lawyer, I work with corporate venturers. The last time I was talking about corporate venturing was also a 3-hour program on deal terms. So I don't have quite so long today, but one of the key things on that is that you need, that for the large corporates, invest on arm's length terms as though you're a financial. But for the portfolio companies, I've got 2 clients in the room, for the portfolio companies, it's really important that you try to ensure that they follow their money, because if they pivot, the oil price goes down. Some oil companies continued investing through the cycle, some didn't. So how do you ensure that they invest again? And those are the 2 key things. Make sure that the large company doesn't smother their young, but also the small company can try to ensure that the larger companies follow their money, and that's a key challenge.
Keep them committed.
Inken, you told me a while ago that very often you work based on a handshake with the startups and not a very detailed contracts. How much does it actually help to get the cooperation going if you are so flexible? It sounds very flexible to me.
So to make my quote right, so what we are able to do is from a very early commitment or very loose cooperation, which can be a handshake cooperation, up to 100% investment. So this is a full range we are able to play. And with some startups we are getting to know, it's really like this getting into a relationship phase. And sometimes it's just testing on a very small stuff to do so. And based on that one, we've built our lean testing program, which is run by 5-6 weeks. And either no money is used to get to know each other, to find is there a business model we want to drive together forward, and if, then this is up to 30K. We are providing the venture developer and the startup to find in that 5 to 6 weeks if there is something in for both. And then they come to a pitch. And if no money is needed to get there, fine. And if more money than the 30K is needed, then they have to pitch earlier. And it's really based from that early experience about the willingness and openness we want to do and want to find something together and work together, that we have established that lean testing program. You can see in the internet, startups can apply, and of course via our outposts, this is what we offer to startups.
I want to ask you, because you are the Chief Innovation Officer and you work closely with the board of the company, the CEO and everybody, and you are not the only utility and you want to become a very innovative company. How much actually do you foresee Innogy becoming an acquirer of startups? And do you actually foresee yourself to be acquiring technology startups, maybe like Ubitricity, to become really a technology utility? It's a new term I'm coining.
For us, there is no pure purpose in the target or in a vision of acquiring startups. I mean, if it helps, yes, and if not, not. So it's not a purpose in itself. As I said before, whatever it needs to make a great business model, and where you get a win-win out of it, and where you can earn money in future, which either disrupts our business or is beyond energy, we do. And if acquiring is needed for that one, then of course, why not? But it's not a purpose in itself. So we have brilliant corporations or invests where we do great stuff together, and it's not about that we want to fully buy it.
And Leonie, you bought a famous startup in the Netherlands a while ago, not you personally, the company, QB.
Yeah.
How much is this transaction helping you to become this type of technology utility?
A lot. I think for us, I mean, the same counts that we like to keep our options open. It's not that if we invest in a startup, then immediately the end goal is to acquire it in full. But obviously it can happen. And I think with QB, that we had a very successful cooperation with them in the Netherlands when we still had a minority share. We built a quite extensive installed base there. And then we hit a point where we said, okay, if we want to do this, this is a big boys game, so to say, to really try and win this smart home market, which will need extensive capital for one, and we really believe in it. So we also see it as a future business branch, so to say, of the new Eneco. And those two reasons kind of driven us to saying, okay, then we'll acquire it in full, but it remains its own company. So they have their own headquarters, their own personnel. Now complemented by some Eneco personnel actually went over there, but still the largest part of the company is just still the QB personnel with their own strategy, their own business plan. It's just part of the Eneco group, and they have quite an ambitious international expansion strategy that they're working on, and we're just rooting for them, obviously, because we really see that this is a step forward for us as a company. So it's, yes, we acquired them, but to be honest, it sometimes feels a bit as a reverse takeover as well, because it's not that they just became part of the whole Eneco Group family as we used to do with some other takeovers. This is really a new business branch and hopefully a very successful one on the tree that is on Eneco. But
Knut, if you look back at your career of talking to corporates, opening up a corporate relationship, did the corporates actually improve in the last couple of years? Are they more accessible? Is it easier nowadays to find the right person in a corporate and start a relationship, and hopefully one that is leading to a deal, a business cooperation?
It's a bit hard to say, of course, because experience here is sector specific. So in utility, hell yes, that is really impressive how much it changed. Particularly, for example, with your company. Which was quite a different world as with all other leading German utilities 5 years ago. So that wouldn't, then these companies perceive themselves as defining the market and the technology and the business model and the law, which was just reality. And so I think that has now changed. And interestingly, the other sector to which we are, let's say, trying to sell, automotive, very recently has been shaken up a bit, through software that wasn't the way something happened, whatever, in this Volkswagen software, and then this Tesla Model 3 success of 500,000 pre-orders that really reminded the German automobile industry that eventually, it doesn't help avoiding to be disruptive, that that it's going to happen, maybe, and not doing anything. So now finally they woke up, so that means overnight things changed. So things are being reevaluated, being reconsidered, you're re-invited, maybe we can start something, let's start something small, why don't we just do it? Couldn't we build this in the car? Why is the mobile meter in the cable? Why is that in the car? I mean, that's what we pretended since, like we proposed from day one, that this should be a piece of software in the car. Why would you have it in a cable? I mean, it's the nice TomTom aftermarket approach, easy to fit. But it should be a piece in the car so that you can bundle the car with the electricity. And this is pretty obvious, isn't it? But only if you not say, well, I'm going to build diesels forever anyway. So this changed extremely. So, and whether there's a wider change in philosophy or methods applying to other industries, that one is more willing to work with startups. It seems to, but I don't know. maybe that it's also, I think a bit of a hype cycle. So if there is a wave of successful tech startups, then it's on vogue to talk to, and everyone is then CEO and entrepreneur and founds a company, and then I think that comes in waves. And currently, it's en vogue, I would say.
Neil, how much do you perceive a change in corporates, their know-how, and also their behavior when it comes to working with the startups? I mean, a contract is like a formal document, yeah, to describe what is allowed and what is not allowed in this relationship.
Yeah.
How much do you actually see that corporates kind of guarantee and maintain startup independence on the one hand, while on the other hand, they really work together productively?
So I'm just starting by saying that there are twice as many corporate venture capital units or funds now than there were 4 years ago.
It's a big trend.
Massive. So there are 1,000. So it's 60% of the Fortune 500. And that means that there are a lot of new ones. And the new ones tend to, in a surfeit of enthusiasm more than anything else, get too close. And the terms get blurred. They very often will have a business unit sponsor, which is not a bad thing. It's just that that business unit sponsor can get too close. And I've seen licensing of brands down to the portfolio company before the portfolio company's got any customers. That means that that company is perceived as that large corporate. I've seen a commingling of intellectual property, patents being filed by the large corporate. All of these sorts of things mean that the company has exited because nobody else can buy that company. You're much too close. And very often the founders, they'll be constrained by capital, especially in clean tech, and it's 2009. And nobody will take a meeting in Europe, nor Silicon Valley, believe me. Nobody will take a meeting if you call it clean tech in 2009. And so, I know, guys. But I didn't. And so in those circumstances, you go to your corporate and you say, well, can you be my channel partner? Can I use your brand? Can you help? Especially automotive was probably the worst. Utilities much better, actually. And so in that doubling of numbers, there's 500 new units. Some of those managers of those units will be former M&A people. M&A is about control. They might be strategy, they might be innovation, they might be former venture capitalists. The venture capitalists will invest on their old term sheets, so they'll all do it in a slightly different way. And some of those new ones have made some significant mistakes on their early investments. But the ones that have been going for longer or have got as big as yours so quickly will get through that process a lot quicker and then have standardized terms. So you ask about deal terms. Term sheets are universal. I teach a program at the Global Corporate Venturing Academy. I encourage people, I don't have a financial stake, I encourage people to look at Global Corporate Venturing because it's the industry magazine and awards and everything else. And the term sheets are universal in pretty much. The long-form legal documents aren't. They're completely different in every jurisdiction. But the term sheets are fairly similar. They will all have preference shares or not. They will all have liquidation preferences. They'll have anti-dilution ratchets, or they won't. They'll have a full ratchet. It's a full ratchet. It's mathematical. It's not linguistic or a matter of law. Or it's a weighted average ratchet. And they matter. Those terms really, really matter. And has it become more standardized? I think it has become more standardized, and I think Global Corporate Venturing has had a big impact on that, raising the best practice.
Mm. But to add to that, what in my experience is almost as important as the formal terms is the informal relationship that you have. Because for us, if I encounter a startup that I believe would be too dependent upon Eneco as a customer or a partner, then I'm actually really hesitant to invest, because even if you set the official terms right, on an informal level, you have so much influence, and that's not good for us and not good for the startup. So I think for us now, one of the criteria for investing is actually this needs to be a company that besides Eneco has a business model on its own. And if we decide on a commercial level not to work together with them anymore, which I would perceive as a failure, then still they should be able to survive. They shouldn't be that dependent. And I think for startups as well, it is so tempting to, yes, you know, this is going to be my first big client and then an investor, but you really need to check yourself whether you want that. And if you want that, then I think it's good to have kind of a balanced shareholding in your company, so there's at least another third party kind of a referee in there.
And there's another effect, so not just that the startup starts loving the first investor, we also make the experience, if the corporate starts loving the startup, you also have to take care, because sometimes it's on the one hand difficult to bring it into business, but if business starts loving it, you also have to take care of it, because then from all sides the startup is approached, and can you do something with us and us, and then again the startup is in a struggle. It's like, oh my god, to whom can I say no, and so on and so forth. So this is also something which can happen, where then again somebody has to take care of, and either it's a venture fund or our case and it's an innovation hub.
Maybe what we didn't come across, I mean, corporate venture might not be stuffed so full with people that have experience in building companies. As we're seeing technology growing inside is something, having something that already has scale, then marketing it, whatever. So the toolbox of the corporation is great and talented people, but usually there's no one like a real VC, financial independent VC that has created teams, fired the management, pivoted the stuff together with the founders, whatever. So building a company is quite different from creating a project within a corporate. So, and if you have the real ambitious target, then you probably want to add these expertise as well. So I would think it would be, in particular, green tech, growing clean tech, in particular when it touches the regulated sphere deeply. Without corporate support, it's probably impossible, but growing it out of it without financial VCs on board might be even more challenging, I would say.
And this is a big trend. About 4 or 5 years ago, corporates and financial VCs very rarely co-invested, largely because the corporates didn't like the financial VC to control the exit, and the timing of the exit is what a financial VC is in business for. And it will control the drag-along right, by and large. And so timing of that exit or sale to a competitor, all of these sorts of things that the corporates didn't like, but actually most have sort of come to terms with. And that co-investment trend, I think it's now something like 20-30% in some of the markets, including clean tech. There's a co-investment on later deals, co-investment between a corporate and a VC. And that means that the VC keeps the corporate at arm's length sufficiently, but the corporate can still help from time to time, but not be smothered. But also, the corporate is the best negotiator of the VC terms as well. So egregious ratchets and what have you, there are some that are okay and some that are market and some that absolutely aren't. Well, the corporates will be experts in negotiating their terms as well. So those co-investments, they're tricky to pull off, but it's now become a big theme on about 20-30% of all deals. And
we experience it also as very efficient or beneficiary, not efficient, beneficiary, because we are in the meantime asked to come in as strategic investors explicitly by financial investors and equity holders, because they say, hey, our startup has to go into the next stage. And we are a good investor financially, but we are not the best one to make it strategic. So there the offering goes from, hey, you can have a lead role in the next finance round, but even if you don't have the lead finance role, we give you the strategic lead role. That is interesting to see and look at. And of course, that's also interesting for us as a corporate, because that's then when we can bring in experience, customers, and so on and so forth. So I think that is getting more.
Well, that is maybe in clean tech space just also because these funds are just so small. They don't have money. I mean, so probably if it's sequenced, it's perfect. So the very early stage from typical European small-scale VC, then getting it to market strategically, and then agreeing on that it could be big business. and then get VC on board, growth stage, real VC.
One of the other trends here is that for any large corporate that accounts in US GAAP, the advice at the moment would be that they have to consolidate if they take anything more than 20%, or even more than one board seat out of 5, that's 20% of the board. Now, that is ridiculous, but it is at the moment the advice. So US GAAP accounting corporates won't put more than 20% in, which means you're going to need your capital from somewhere. So that is also driving a lot of co-investment deals. And certainly in maybe less in utility, but in oil and gas, they are used to, on exploration and production, the oil companies are used to buddying up with some of the other world's largest companies out in the field on E&P projects. So they're very, very comfortable co-investing with other oil companies on strategic deals, and a couple of the deals that we're involved with are those deals. And they're much more collaborative than you'd think. For technology and media companies, they'd almost never do that. But it's interesting how the different segments of the market are doing that co-investment and dealing with the capital constrained environment.
What you say is not just oil and gas. You have that the same if you build offshore wind parks. I mean, you hardly find by just one investor or company established a big offshore wind park. It's the same model which is going there.
Okay, I have the feeling it's a good moment to close this panel and actually jump into our next break. And the good news is this location is licensed to sell alcohol after 4 p.m. And it is after 4 p.m., which makes this coffee break a beer break. Okay, let's do it. We are here, I think, back probably
back tomorrow.
5 or 10 minutes after 5. We are back here. Okay, enjoy the break, and thank you very much for being part of this.